Hey guys, Robert here, and I've got yet another special guest on with me, Mr. Aaron Sparrow, a guy who's been in the comic industry for quite a while, but best known for me especially as the guy who edited and wrote Darkwing Duck at Boom Studio and then later at Joe's Books. Thank you very much for coming on, Aaron. You are one of the definitive, besides Tad himself, you're one of the definitive voices for Darkwing, in my opinion.
Oh, wow, that's really, you know what? I could not receive a nicer compliment. Thank you so much. And
Mm.
that's like a $900 book you've got there. Uh,
Yeah, oh, I got it once it first came out. I told my comic store, get me this. They got it, bought it. And
yeah, it's
yeah,
so crazy the way that's jumped up. I mean, it hasn't been reprinted, so I think that the initial print run of
wow.
that was like 7,000 copies.
Oh, I lucked
So
out then.
yeah, I think that there's only like 7,000 out there. So it goes for quite a premium on the secondary market.
Yep, and good luck trying to ever, even on stuff like, piracy, they keep showing the Boom comic. They never show this. They'll show this run, but nothing from here. So,
Yeah, it's funny. Like they haven't really updated it. And
I mean,
the
not saying that I'd be wanting to. I mean, for others to see it, yes, but
Well, for those who don't know, the Boom run of the material is not the definitive version. There was a lot of
nope.
interference. There was a lot of
Yeah.
a lot of rewriting of our scripts. We at that point, Silvani and I were basically ghostwriting the series.
Oh,
But all of
yeah.
our dialogue was getting scrapped, and a lot of like things that we wanted to do a little differently were changed. But when Joe Books picked up the license, Disney said they said we want to do this Darkwing reprint. Disney Publishing said, "Well, we want you to go back to these guys and restore the original scripts."
Oh, that's awesome. That says a lot. I think what Boom did at the end with Dangerous Currency did not help matters at all.
No, it's actually funny. The reason that Boom lost the I mean, that book was kind of done out of spite because Boom was losing the Disney license because they were publishing things without getting them approved, which is a big no-no. Yeah, so that's why that Dangerous Currency book has a lot of that's the one that
A lot
James
of
and
fluff.
I,
Yeah.
yeah, we had the least amount of control over, which is why you get some really out of character moments and some things that just plain don't make sense, like the fact
Exactly.
that Mama Crackshell's surprised to find out that Fenton is in the Gizmo Duck suit
What?
in Dangerous Currency. Yeah, even though in the
never said
cartoon,
Super DuckTales. It's the actual 5-part movie.
well, that script was mostly being done by Brill without any oversight from James and I. So
Which what is that? What does that say about Brill's knowledge then? Without you guys, tells you that it was.
That was really kind of like the defining moment where people really started to realize that that I had been that everything I'd been saying about the series was correct. Everything I'd been saying about my contribution, even though Boom was denying it.
Well, yeah,
that was where people really started to pick up. They're like, wait a minute, maybe there's something to this. And then, of course, once the Definitively Dangerous edition came out with the restored scripts and James and my restored vision for the series, which we had to eliminate Dangerous Currency entirely because it wasn't our plot. I mean, the only thing that was left of our plot really was the ink and the Phantom Blot being the villain, and then
which set up some good ideas.
Yeah, some of the villain pieces, and then there's one particular scene that was taken directly from us, where Darkwing's looking through the microscope and he sees all the little ink blots.
Yeah.
But in our actual version of it, that's the reveal that Negaduck is involved, because as he zooms in, all the little ink blots become tiny little Negaducks doing horrible things to each other.
Right.
And chasing each other with chainsaws and just and being horrible. And then all of a sudden they all turn and they look through the microscope at Darkwing. And Darkwing's got that moment of like, uh-oh. And then the ink explodes out of the out of the slide and becomes this big amorphous ink monster that looks like, it's in the shape of Negaduck and attacks everybody. And so a very truncated piece of that still made it into the book. But there was just like so many things in there that didn't make sense, that were just done as a matter of convenience, like Gizmo Duck's suit projecting Magica's plan, just like projecting exposition that he had like no way of knowing. And
there was that. So many other weird character inconsistencies and everything, and setting up a big moment like, oh, Donald's getting involved. It's like Donald was hardly involved in DuckTales in the first place. So I mean, it makes more sense for the DuckTales reboot for Donald to get involved. And you're like, oh shit, him doing it in the DuckTales, the original series, doesn't have as much weight to it.
No, there was a way to do it. I mean, there was a way to involve Donald. It just was, like that whole series, that whole 4-issue arc, it was not executed well.
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't.
They treat it like we should know, like, oh, he's a bad. Like, Not in that show. You needed to actually build up to it, not just he's sitting in it, the old sitting in the chair, getting up and walking out. It's like, no, that version didn't earn it.
Yeah, and the original plot line that we had written for the big Phantom Blot story, which is actually supposed to come a couple arcs later. It was supposed to be built to better than that. And all those covers that you see, like all the villains swimming in the money bin and things like that, those were all done beforehand because and they didn't match up with the
that
story.
That matches the title. That matches the title better. Dangerous Currency, because there was they're in the money and everything. That already matches.
Yeah, so those covers, that don't make any sense in the context of the book as it was printed, were all part of the original storyline that we wanted to do. So if James and I had done it, you would have actually seen all of the villains in the money bin. You would have seen, a lot more involvement from Flintheart, and it would have been a much bigger, more epic story. But it was just rushed together and kind of pasted together at the end. When we did the Definitively Dangerous edition, Disney asked us, can you salvage this, because this was printed without permission, so it's a mess, and we kind of don't like it. We kind of don't consider it to be part of the canon. And they asked us if we could salvage it, and I said there's no way we could do this without completely rewriting it and redrawing it, which Joe Books did not want to pay for us to do 4 issues with the material to add onto the omnibus. So I had to write a new ending. And then what we were going to do if the Joe Book series had continued is eventually we would have built back up to that plot line, but done correctly.
Right. And one thing I also love about once you did the Joe Books properly, I love how you start bringing characters from the games, and one of my favorite villains, Fluffy. I love Fluffy. I remember because I got Disney Adventures and I had the entire trilogy and everything. Fluffy was always a character I'm like, oh, I wish he was in the show, and this is as close as I'll get to that.
Yeah, we had big plans for Fluffy. Like, obviously, there was a dangling plot thread that was left open with him.
A lot of dangling threads in general, yeah.
Yeah, we had Quackerjack, the Quackerjack thread. We had the Negaduck thread. We had Splatter Phoenix and what Negaduck was planning with with her, and just all kinds of little things.
The Phantom Blot.
Yeah, and people asked me, they said, like, the last issue, like, were all those subplots, like, crammed in because, you wanted to show what was coming and maybe generate interest. But those were all originally, scheduled to, like, appear over the course of the next 2 issues if we would have continued. So I did kind of put 2 issues worth of subplots into that final, final story.
Like the stuff with Quackerjack, just totally nice homage, by the way, to Death of the Family.
Yes, yeah, and there would have been a cover of that was like that with a lot of there's some Easter eggs in that hidden in there that indicate some things, some directions that we were going. As there's Easter eggs through the whole book, what we wanted to do differently at Joe Books, because the model was different. At Boom, you had to do 4-issue arcs. That was like their
right.
Deal. So it made it tough to do like smaller villain stories, that focused on one character. Because you're not going to get a character like Lilliput and do like a 4-issue arc with him. You're going to do like a one-off. So,
definitely.
Yeah. So, but what we want to do differently with the Joe Book series is we were building this huge plot line for the end of what we considered like season 1 of that series. And we wanted people to be able to go back through the comic after they got to the big reveals and realize that it was always right there, and these things were always right there in front of their face if they would have
one of those shows, like one of those episodic shows that actually have a bit of a ongoing narrative, like Danny Phantom, shows like that where they're episodic, but you can follow. It's better to follow it in the chronological release order to actually get all the plot beats, and then usually it ends with some tying up of those events.
Yeah, and the book was designed, too, to where we could pull out the subplots if we wanted. Like, you could pull all those subplots out of the Bushroot story, and then you could reprint it somewhere, like in a Disney Adventures type magazine, or it could go overseas, and it could be a standalone Bushroot story without the subplots. So that's why everything's like a single. That's the way I like to write anyway, is where every page is a specific. I don't like to end a scene mid-page. I think that's sloppy. So all the subplots take up one, enough, a solid page at least, so that you could pull those out and not affect the story overall if it needed to be repackaged somewhere. So yeah, there was a lot of elements of design that we had in the Joe Book series that we weren't able to do in the Boom Studios run.
Right, but back to the Definitively Dangerous edition though. So obviously the first arc, probably the least amount of changes needed, obviously, when you guys were working on it. I mean, a few things here and there, taking out like a few mild curses and all that stuff, you know, like from Megavolt saying, what a crappy whatever, you know, headquarters. But then going into the, well, first I gotta say, my favorite moment, period, was when Negaduck attacked the Mallard's house. That was one of my best favorite scenes. And just the way you wrote it all, it's just like, I want Jim to read that. Everything I want Jim to read, but that especially was Negaduck. How it's like he's had this moment he's been wanting to do the Darkwing for so long, and now here's this moment doing it, and then it gets cut right out from under him.
And we explained something that people from the show always asked, which was, since Negaduck is an alternate version of Drake, how does he not know who Drake Mallard is? He doesn't have one. His secret identity. Yeah, and so we and I don't know why that was cut from the original scripts as written. Because that was always part of it. But you know, for whatever reason, they were cut from the Boom Studios run, where he says, you know, in the Negaverse, there is no Drake Mallard. Why, if you're this awesome, why would you ever pretend to be anything else?
Now you can have it. You can still have his Goslin and all that stuff. That kind of comes like by default. To which I'm sure once Negaduck found out there's another universe, he's like, oh, that's why I got stuck with her, because she existed there. Like, that's how I always looked at it. Like, once he found out, deep down, he felt like, oh, that's why, because it was a requirement.
And you would have seen more of the, you know, if the Joe Book series had continued, or if we ever get to do another run, you know, it's our intention that you'll see more of the Negaverse. You know, we had Nega Gizmo Duck on the plate. We had Nega Morgana. You know, there's designs that I think the Nega Gizmo Duck design is out there. James.
Oh, I'll look that up. Yeah,
James drew it for somebody as a commission. They asked for it, and so he drew it.
I wanted to see your plans for the because didn't you say you, much like Tazstone himself, planned on doing Negaduck versus the other Negaduck?
Yeah, we hadn't really like mapped out what we want to do with that, but it was definitely like an idea that was on the board.
That was something Tad wanted to do too, and I'm like, I wanted that so much.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we definitely would have gone to Tad and said like, okay, well, what did you want to do? Do you, you know, is this a story that you want to tell? You know, because we could do it in an annual, or we could do an issue, you know, whatever it is that was required. One thing I really wanted Tad to do was I wanted to do a 4-issue miniseries called The One True Origin of Darkwing Duck, where each issue is a different origin.
Of course, one of those.
Yeah, and it was like the framing device. You know, I had this idea that at the end, you know, like the framing device would be Goslin, you know, sitting at, you know, like a Junior Woodchuck's camp out. And everybody's telling their stories, you know, kind of like the classic Batman animated series.
Yep.
Where everybody's telling their story of like, you know, what they think Darkwing is, and everybody has a different idea. And then at the end, something scary happens, and the kids run off, and you know, and Darkwing appears, and Goslin, you know, asks him like, you know, hey, what you know, what is your one true origin anyway? Like, what is the one true story anyway? And we cut to. You know, Drake gives some like, you know, vague, like exciting answer, but then we cut to him just like sitting like Batman in the in the chair, you know, criminals are superstitious and cowardly.
Yeah.
And then but instead of like a bat coming through the window or even a duck coming through the window, like I shall become a duck, which was always Tad's joke. And then like, wait, I am a duck. How does that work? But instead of doing that, we were just going to have him turn and go, you know, like, you know, the other cities sure got a lot of crime, and I've got all these gas guns and fancy hats, and it's just a wall of like, you know, those two things. So it's like this. It's really simplistic.
It's so dark. Just the fact that he had all of this stuff, and of course that leads to the question of why did he have that? That's not what you were asking for.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because Darkwing is one of those books where people, like if you watch the show, you know that you don't always get the answers because sometimes it's just the rule of cool or the rule of funny. You know, whatever works in that moment. Like for example, when we did the Bushroot story. We said that like we have Dwayne telling it, and he says that the events happen like from the original episode Beauty and the Beat. Dwayne basically says this happened 28 days tater, which, you know, of course is a reference to, you know, the zombie films and things like that we were lampooning. And I had people writing me and going, wait, you said this series takes place like the Duck Knight Returns started a year after where the show ended. Yeah, there was like a year in between. And I'm like, yeah. And then they say, well, you said that this now takes place 28 days later. That's a contradiction. And I'm like, it's Darkwing. He has like 5 different origins, you know, like it. And do you consider Dwayne to be a reliable narrator? I mean, you have to just go with the flow and have some fun with it.
And one of my other favorite things is how you've handled Launchpad, how you, like, one of the best handlings of him. And I especially love how when you introduce that derp guy in the Joe's book, how it's like, that guy, Derp, the news anchor guy, first of all, loved how he's the son of the head, the head of the network. It's like, of course. But it's like,
yeah, Durfson proved to be pretty popular. People thought that was a fun character.
Dumb as the detractors of DuckTales seem to think Launchpad is. Anyone who doesn't know Launchpad, Derp is as dumb as people think Launchpad is, and that's what I liked about it. No, Launchpad's nowhere near that dumb. He is nowhere near. And I loved how you actually had him get annoyed as much as Darkwing gets annoyed at people botching and butchering his stuff. It's like, okay, seriously, how do you not know who I am? It's like,
yeah, it's like, I was mayor of the city. Like, I was the head of Quackworks. I was the mayor of the city for 5 minutes.
it's like now he knows how Darkwing feels.
Yeah, that was definitely our intention. Plus, it was just fun to make fun of Launchpad's name and having the reporter as kind of the intro. We try to do different intros each time to the story and make it fun. Obviously we open the Joe Books run with a reporter, talking about the St. Kennard Electrical Parade, which is based on the Disney Main Street Electrical Parade,
right?
Because we knew we wanted that's something that Megavolt would obviously target, and it could be a good throwaway gag to intro everything. And much like Duck Knight Returns, we opened with Megavolt. That was any series that we do will probably open with Megavolt. We get to do a third run. You'll open with Megavolt.
Yeah, because seriously, Megavolt is just such a great character. I mean, Dan Castellaneta's voice and everything, just so fun. And I still always remember that one Disney Adventure 2-parter where he gets actually I think he put it in the chair and he gets souped up, and everything overloaded, and then eventually he then drains a Gizmo Duck suit, and it causes him to even go more haywire and everything. And then it takes by the end for him first separate, villains capture him, they separate him into a bunch of duplicates, and then he reabsorbs them and he's back to normal again. It's like, you know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, that one. I also remember the fact that Darkwing technically did superhero registration long before Marvel did with that one stretchy hero. What was his name? Oof. You know who I'm talking about in that one, right? The guy who we didn't find out until the second part of the story that he had stretchy abilities, but he had all these other superheroes and everything with him.
Right.
And yeah, and then of course at the end, what did they say when they asked Darkwing, like, what can we do to help? It's like, get out of my town. But I guess
I'm retweeting right now that we're on.
Yeah, cool, it's awesome. But yeah, you know what I mean? It's just, I love moments like that. Again, the fact that you kept the Disney Adventure comics canon and everything, because I love those. I just love everything about those short comics and everything that Disney Adventure did. HJ, you would have brought him that. Oh, who was that one villain? The one with the cereal. He had like that claw hand, but he would then put a puppet on it.
Oh, Claude Hopper. I think in, if I'm not mistaken, he's in issue 1 of the Joe Books run when we do the double page reveal of all the villains escaping from their cell.
I'm checking.
I think he's in the upper left-hand corner.
Hold on. I almost got it. Oh, yep, there he is. Couldn't tell it was him because we couldn't see his claw.
Yeah. Originally, James had drawn Selego the Chaos God in that spot.
Oh!
And, so when I got the roughs back, I was like, "Oh, James, we actually,
that's too big of a role."
Yeah, I said, and also Selego is buried at the bottom of the money bin, canonically, and we wanted to do another story where we revisited Selego. We had pitched a series called The Return of the Chaos God, and it crossed over through all of the Disney afternoon properties, but even bigger this time, and would have actually ended in Gargoyles. So I had talked to Greg Weisman. We had figured out a way to get Selego to the Gargoyles universe and do a one shot where
that would have been so awesome. So the Chaos God is one of the peak. If he knows that everyone, the moment they start bringing in other characters in the reboot of DuckTales, everyone kept saying, "Are they building to the Chaos God? Are they building to the Chaos God?" I remember people always would bring up the Chaos God.
Mm-hmm.
It's so funny.
It's a fun character, and I thought we had a really interesting way to kind of bring him back, and we had a henchman of his that was trying to resurrect him.
One of those lived
throughout the centuries, who basically would have become kind of Darkwing's Ra's al Ghul type.
Villain. That would have been awesome. Yeah, you had so much planned.
Yeah, so we were always drawing from these great inspirations and then putting a very Darkwing twist on it.
Yeah,
was
by
always
the
our
way,
goal.
speaking of which, what did you think about the DuckTales reboot and especially how they handled Darkwing in that?
I mean, I'm obviously, I wrote Crisis on Infinite Darkwings, so I have no problem with there being alternate versions of Darkwing out there.
Mm-hmm.
I actually really liked the show. I've not seen all the episodes. I haven't watched all the way to the finale.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Oh, it's a great finale. I'll just say that it's a great finale.
I've been told it's fantastic, but it's like one of those things where it's like I kind of don't want it to end, so I'm putting off.
Oh yeah.
Putting off watching it. So I think they did a great job. I think that that Frank and Matt and Madison and everybody who was on the team there, they had a great vision for the series. They did a lot of things that we were trying to do in the Darkwing books. They got to do a lot of things that we were told that we couldn't do in the Darkwing books. So
let me guess. Can I take a guess? Can I take a guess for one? Was Della one of them?
Della was not one of them because we didn't really touch. We didn't really touch DuckTales too much.
Right.
If we would have,
I'm just saying, if she ever was in Duck, have it be like that. I mean, that would have been an interesting idea. That's all. But
like just a lot of the things of them pulling in different influences and a lot of the stuff that they got to do. Kind of creating a Disney Afternoon shared universe. That was things that we were trying to do. Obviously, first issue of Darkwing, Gadget, or I think it's the second issue, Gadget.
Yeah, I know. Like, no, you can't. And then that ended up leading into that comic and everything, which, again, that was one of those where I think Ian got lucky with how, the writing went on that one because of how...
Ian got a lot of help from Tad.
Oh, he did?
The initial pitch had... Tad basically went through and was like, this doesn't work, this doesn't work, this doesn't work, this is what you should do, this is what you should do. Originally, he had Gadget solve, basically write an equation, like it ended with her writing an equation on Norton Nimnall's board about how to solve Norton Nimnall's niece's disease. And Tad had to say, that's not who Gadget is. Like, you don't understand Gadget's character. Gadget's an inventor. She builds planes out of toothpaste tubes and bleach bottles and thread and wire and thimbles.
She's more of a cobbled together genius, which she has a ridiculously high IQ as she puts it, but not that level of science.
Yeah, she's more of an engineer. So things like the Pirates, the Pirates got introduced simply because I had commissioned a cover of the Pirates for a reprint that we were going to put in Walt Disney's Comics and Stories. And then Ross Ritchie, the CEO of Boom, came and said, "What the hell are you doing? Putting a Rescue Ranger story in Walt Disney's Comics and Stories? It needs to be Mickey every month." And I was like, "We've got a Mickey book. Like we're trying to vary it up. We're trying to test the water. We're using Walt Disney's Comics and Stories to test the water to see if there's interest in these original series because I knew there was." And he killed it. So that is why a very particular issue of Walt Disney's Comics and Stories was solicited to Diamond as a surprise issue where we weren't going to tell you what was in it because it got killed 3 days before solicits, and we had to scramble to find another story. Now, fortunately, we found Casty and Mickey in the World of Tomorrow, and we're able to reprint that. But yeah, there's a lot of decisions made. People like to say that. Your run would have been better if it wasn't for all the Disney interference, right? And there's nothing further from the truth. Disney Publishing was very, very encouraging of us doing all these things.
Right.
Almost all of the problems with that original series came from Boom Management. And just their lack of vision for the characters, for the properties. They had a toy that they didn't know the actual value of. And at one point, like on Toy Story, I've told this story a few times, Jesse Snyder was writing Toy Story. And he and I were really trying to craft stories that had that Pixar heart, and we were swinging for fences. And I was told that we were too ambitious, and we could have 22 pages of Woody and Buzz just sitting on a curb talking to each other, and people will still buy it because it's Pixar.
Oh, jeez, that mindset of so long as you just have the stuff slapped on it, they'll buy it. That mindset.
The only reason, really the only reason at that time. Now they've, Boom's come a long way. They've obviously done very well with. With their Power Rangers license and things like that. I believe that is due to the guidance of their editor, Daphne Plebin. I worked with Daphne. She is a fantastic editor. She should be editor-in-chief somewhere. She gets comics. She understands what fans want because she's a fan and she lives from that perspective. So I think she was really able to turn Power Rangers into a blockbuster for them.
Yeah.
So it was approached. So but whereas the Disney license was kind of approached as, well, when we go into movie studios and we pitch our original material, we get to fan all these Pixar books out on the table and say, Pixar handpicked us to do their comics, which really wasn't true. Pixar was really uncomfortable with Boom doing comics, so I had to do a lot of damage control throughout my time.
I could just imagine. Well, then tell me this: well, that moment when you have like the stuff in Monsters Inc. tying in the Toy Story. From what I recall, they always were. Weren't they always against that idea of characters cross-pollinating like that, I believe, or?
They were like, it came to a point where it was like, okay, you can do it because the monsters cross over into the regular world, but you just can't you can't name Sid, you can't, there was a thing of like, you couldn't actually name him. It had to be left somewhat vague, even though it's obviously Sid standing there.
Right.
That was part of the fun, and but it's because Pixar wants everything to be canon, and Pixar wants everything to, have a certain quality, and they weren't confident at that time. And eventually, I got them there. Like right before I got fired, I got Pixar to the table because Disney had me go up and have a creative meeting with their people, and we just like fed off each other and came up with all these great story ideas. And then once I was fired, that was pretty much the end of Pixar at Disney. Pixar was like, we're done. We're done. We don't. I was told by one of the Pixar people, like a few weeks later at Comic-Con, we met up and had lunch, and he, asked me like what happened from my perspective, and I told him, and he said, well, he goes, just so you know, as soon as he goes, we were interested in working with you on these books. We weren't so interested in working with Boom, and once you were gone, that was pretty much the end of the license.
Right. Yeah.
So that was very flattering because. I tried to, I always try to be above board in all of my dealings. There was always, you would go into meetings and it would be like, okay, we're going to talk to Pixar today. What's our spin going to be on this? And my feeling was always like, why can't we just have an honest conversation? Why are we always trying to like beguile, these people who are our partners? And,
I mean, that's why I want to look at stuff like, now depending on the editor, of course, like IDW was their licenses. You could so tell there are some of their editors who have a love for it, and then there are those who feel like, oh, let's use it for our own means. And unfortunately, I guess unlike compared to Disney and Pixar, Hasbro is more blasé unless it bites them in their butt, financially.
Yeah, if I had to delineate what I think the problem, the main creative problem with IDW is, it would probably be nepotism. It would be that there's editors who have like kind of their little fiefdoms, and they're only going to hire the people that they like, and it doesn't matter if those people are good for the project or those people are going to sell books. It's just kind of it's kind of that industry nepotism that goes on. For example, like I could, Silvani and I could go over and we could do a Turtles book and knock it out of the park. Like we would love to do like Revive the Archie series and do a continuation of that, or we could do a Transformers book and we could absolutely kill it. But we'll never be asked because we're not part of that clique. And that's and until the company either folds or those licenses go somewhere else, there's no chance that we'll ever be working on them. Which is unfortunate I think for the readers, because we would do things that are really satisfying. Oh yeah,
I definitely, I would love to see you guys say on My Little Pony or something. Now, of course, that's moving off into something else, but I gotta say, the fact they're ending it with G4 meeting G1, I think that tells you that someone's a big fan out there.
Yeah, I don't think James and I mean, obviously James can draw the ponies and he could do some covers.
I was talking about G1, not G4. I was talking about like the earlier ponies.
Yeah, I don't think that's a property that I'd have any interest in tackling. I'm not like, it's not one that it's not one I'm super familiar with, and I think that largely a lot of the people they've hired on My Little Pony, Katie Cook, Georgia Ball.
I love Katie. I've met her so many times. I've met
Sarah
Katie.
Richardson, Tony Fleece. These are all people who've, Tom Zoller. These are all people that have kind of like knocked it out of the park. You've got Brianna Garcia drawing covers sometimes. You've got Agnes Garboska on there. Those are all people that I absolutely adore, and they're pony fans. And I think that they're right for the project, whereas I don't think I am.
Right. I know. I completely understand. I was just throwing that out there as a random example. That's all.
Right.
Yep. But which arc, in going back to the comic and everything, which arc would you say you had to do the most changing? Was it the Duck Sulu one, or was it the campaigning one?
You mean as far as like getting notes from Disney, or
no? As far as when you revised it for here.
I would say they're probably equal.
Especially with some of the artwork on the Duck Sulu one. There was a lot of redraws, I noticed.
Yeah, well, James was never happy with the reveal of Foul Headquarters because he was under such a deadline. So he the volcano lair, he wanted to do something more dramatic. So
Mm-hmm.
we did that. Obviously, a lot of dialogue is restored. Obviously, Steelbeak is a lot better in the Definitively Dangerous edition because he actually sounds like Steelbeak.
Yeah.
All of the dialogue being restored. And then with Campaign Carnage, we had to build to the conclusion. We actually added some pages to kind of make the reveal of Constance have more weight. Like we wanted to lead the reader in the direction of thinking that the villain was Morgana.
Oh, right. Oh, really?
And then that's why she has the head shape that she does.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's some additional pages in there that aren't in the original Boom run when Darkwing's having the nightmare sequence that kind of show his fears and it's more played upon. And she keeps calling him Dark, to give that idea that maybe it's Nega Morgana. So if you hadn't read the Boom series,
Oh yeah. Well, I did read the Boom series. That's why I knew going in. It's like I guess part of those I didn't because I knew who it was. Some of those went right over my head, but now that you say that, wow.
Well, you'll notice that every character is just more distinct in as written by me as opposed to what was published in the Boom material because I worked really hard to understand the character voices and
because I never understood her at all in the Boom version. It was just like someone just felt so off about her character. You know what I mean? I didn't get it, but then once I read through your version, especially the "I'm your number one fan," I'm like, that one line says it all.
Yeah, and actually, if you go back and look at the crowd scene in the beginning of Crisis on Infinite Darkwings, Constance is in the back of the crowd scene, up towards the upper left-hand corner.
Yep. Oh, and I also got to say, the most brilliant idea I saw throughout the whole mini, and I of course chalked this up to you, your idea, is that having Negaduck and Magica, so that you could lead the Magica versus Morgana.
Yeah, that was a big part of it. It's funny, that was actually going to be the third arc. The second arc was going to be Steelbeak originally. And then once the response to Duck Knight Returns was so great, the discussion that we had was, well, you know what, we need to develop the Steelbeak story a little bit more because not all of the story elements have come together yet. What's another story? And people are clamoring for Negaduck after that third cover reveal.
Yeah.
So it was like, we should get to Negaduck right away, and what we should do is we should flip it. So we just told 4 issues of what the city was like without a Darkwing and him returning. Now let's flip it and do the story of a city with too many Darkwings.
Which I also got to say, you're the Commissioner Gordon guy. Was he ever given a proper name or?
Commissioner Morton.
Morton.
He actually had an appearance. If Joe Books had kept going with the series, he actually had an appearance in the first issue of the Quackerjack arc, which was number 9.
That would have been great because he's definitely the Gordon XP and everything. Yeah.
But like anything, the relationship between him and Darkwing, as opposed to Gordon and Batman working together, Darkwing is really eager to please him, and to be his buddy. And Commissioner Morton can't stand Darkwing, so that's the dynamic there.
Yep.
And so you're getting a little bit of Darkwing's getting a little taste of his own medicine, with his relationship with Gizmo Duck, where Gizmo Duck really wants to be his friend, and Darkwing can't stand him. So it's getting his just desserts.
Exactly. Also, I gotta say the stuff with the quivering duck and everything that was so tragic. I mean, it's one thing though you have Dark Warrior Duck seeing it going one way, but then having it be going a different direction.
Mm-hmm.
But was that the intent? Like, we know where Dark Warrior Duck went. What happens if he went a different direction and it was more, instead of Gotham just going missing, she was dead?
Yeah, and do you know what the tragedy is that we didn't really get to there, but we would have touched upon later? Is that almost all of the Infinite Darkwings have lost their Goslings.
Oh, yeah, I did notice that. That I noticed. They all lost their Goslings, and that explains so much at the end why they were all, And I gotta say, I loved all the Darkwings. Doctor Who, Optimus, Lion King.
I don't know if we could even get away with that now. There's a lot of new rules within publishing about being referential to other properties. But man,
Darth Vader. The fact that they're all.
Well, Disney owns that now, so I feel like
I know, but I just love how you've had so many. Some of them are actual villains and heroes. They're all varied. and everything.
A lot of
And,
that was James. Okay, so when I gave James the first script, we had outlined maybe 7 of the Darkwings so far that he had to draw, and and we were planning on obviously listing a lot more. And James got back to me right away and he said, "Well, how many Darkwings are there?" And I said, "Well, the story's called Crisis on Infinite Darkwings, so go nuts." And he was like, "I can draw any Darkwings I want. I can do whatever I want." And we were like, "Yeah, cram it full of." It was funny too because at first because it was he and him talking to Ian and I. Ian was like, "Well, I think we should just stick to the Darkwings that we've written." And I was like, "No, it's Crisis on Infinite Darkwings.
Yeah.
Draw things in the panel. Go crazy." And that's why James is such a great partner to work with on this.
Bowling ball Darkwing. I love that's my favorite one. And at first you think he's not moving, and when it says like, "Are you a talking bowling ball?" Why, yes. And he's looking down. It's like, oh, he is moving.
Mm-hmm. He's got some movement, and I think there's a later issue where you see him swinging on a rope, which makes no sense.
Exactly. Like, what? How? Now, the stuff with the Gizmo duck suit, was it always meant to get trashed, or was that more it just happened organically?
It was meant to, eventually Goslin was meant to lose the suit, but it wasn't supposed to happen that quickly.
It did feel like a bummer, like she just got in and boom, gone next arc.
Yeah, no, there needed to be, one of my regrets of at that point not being in control of the series is that there's certain things that wouldn't be in there if I had maintained complete control. There was just some things that we couldn't get away from because Ian would have his input and with the editors, and he didn't know that he thought James was ghostwriting them, even though he never gave them credit. Anytime anybody complimented the story or anything like that, he always took credit for it, including some of the jokes that were written by me. But he thought, he didn't know they were written by me, but he knew at least that they came through James, but didn't give James any credit on it, like the alligator briefcase.
Yeah, I love that joke.
So, one of the things that we wouldn't have done, we wouldn't have gotten Goslin out of the suit that quickly. We really wanted to do it like a father and daughter arc where Darkwing is really struggling with the fact that this person that he loves more than anyone in the world and would do anything for is, basically has the identity of one of the people that he is the most jealous of and can't stand, and how he kind of reconciles that. So there really should have been a story in between there. And maybe if we ever get to do like some annuals and things like that, we can go back and we can tell that story. But eventually she was meant to lose it, and then there were meant to be some other complications. You'll notice even when we brought Gizmo Duck back in the Joe Book series, he's wearing an updated suit.
Yep.
And he would have had an even more updated suit, after that. But the original Gizmo Duck suit is still in existence, and there was a storyline involving that. So.
Gotcha. And I gotta say, also bringing in Paddywhack, that was clever. Having him with Negaduck, it's like, again, that's something you think, why didn't they ever do that before in the show?
I mean, it could have eventually got to it, if the show had kept going. But you get as many seasons as you get, and then like we're in the same boat. I've got at least. Probably 100 more stories that I could tell with Darkwing Duck just right now, and and as I was going through them, I'd probably be coming up with even more. But thus far we haven't been able to revisit it.
Yeah, and again, just so much. I see what you were talking about, though. Yeah, it was all of them saying like Goslin. Yeah, it just makes so much sense. I mean, that was always in the back of my mind that, was it because they all lost them? And yeah, now that you say that, now I would say this. I do say I'm a bit, and when it comes to the annual, how both you and Ian wrote, the reason behind was quacking. Like this page here, the two very different. And if I could be brutally honest, both of them hold up that one page anyway. Both versions of that one page, because they're so radically different that I'm like, wow, I could look at both these and I see what who wrote. I could definitely tell who wrote which, but I can also see why their mindset was on writing both. That's why I find that. Looking at those pages so fascinating for both versions of just the one page. The rest, of the book,
it's two very different perspectives on the same event. One is one was designed to take a dig at me.
Really?
And mine was designed not only to just kind of like correct the record a little bit, but with anything I do was designed to get us to the next Quackerjack story. So what I did, the changes that I made there were designed to take us to the next Quackerjack story, which.
But people could read into it as taking a dig at Boom. I've heard some people look at it that way.
Oh yeah, and Duck Thulu is basically kind of like my my opinion on Ross. He was designed as
Right.
at the time, which was just a guy who you'll notice in the Definitively Dangerous edition. He says the comics don't really matter. Getting optioned, that's where it's at. It's all about the kind of like the using these little comics as a springboard into movies, which are actually important.
Oh God! So he's one of the ones that started what we've been seeing so many creators going into that mindset of using.
I'll give credit where it's due. Ross and Andrew Cosby, who was Ross's business partner, who later Ross cut out of the business. They were the people who they were it was a visionary idea like that. They were the first people who say like these are storyboards for movie pitches. So right. That's that's they really own that. Everybody else got on board later.
Right. So because now you say that you're like, wow, that back then that was way before you've had all these other creators going in with that.
Mm-hmm. And that was even before like Netflix and things like that. That was when it was only movie studios. So
right.
It was a visionary idea, and I don't think it's the worst idea.
Right.
But I think that my focus, being that I care about comics and I care about the comics medium, you make the comics important. And then the movies and the Netflix and all of that will follow if you produce a quality product that people want to adapt into something.
Exactly.
I think it's very cynical to go in and create a comic with the intention that the comic side of it doesn't really matter. What matters is on an exec's desk and having him see that this is a great show. Why can't both be great?
Right. Now, given how the book ended, but then given what we saw in the Joe's book, you mind giving me at least a tease of how do you explain how Cracker Jack is back? Just a tease. I mean, I saw the barrels of ink, so.
Well, it all has to do with the molecular digitizer. So when we were building towards issue 9 before the rug got pulled out from under us, I had somebody. I can't remember her name, but I met her at Rose City Comic Con, and she makes these little craft knitted versions of characters. Oh. And so I commissioned her to do the whole Fearsome Five for me, and Darkwing's family. Mm-hmm. And so I had a little Quacker Jack, and I went out and I put it on the stoop, and I took a picture of it, and he had the little sign. Instead of saying this is the best I'll ever be, it said, "Are you sure?" Or what did it say? It said, "Did you really see what you think you saw?" And I can tell you
guys, it didn't turn into a toy. It shrunk him, and that toy just was left there, or something like that. I'm just guessing.
Maybe there was going to be a flashback that was going to show what actually happened.
Oh, okay, cool.
Let me put it this way: the panels that you get on that page, there are panels missing. There's other things that happened in between.
Oh, I had a feeling with that. That's what was going through my mind. Because there's a lot of stuff away from him. You just see the flash, so it's like, what happened there? The moment I realized that was him, and there I'm like, and again, just the fact that you made him much more serious, like Tad wanted. From what I understand, Tad always wanted Quacker Jack to be a much more serious villain, less Cesar Romero, more what would you say, the Jack Nicholson Joker?
It wasn't out at the time, but maybe more. I think more comic Joker.
More comic Joker. Yeah,
that's where Tad's inspiration came from. Darkwing is a big.
Of course, I also know people love comics. But I do also know there are a lot of people who love Quack Jack as it is and don't like seeing him made more serious. I understand that because it's like.
Well, we were gonna fix that too. Like if we'd gotten to go further, we had a reason. That he's. I can say this. When he has the original Mr. Banana Brain, he's more whimsical and funnier and more like the show. When he has Mecha Banana Brain, he's darker and creepier. So
I noticed that. I did notice that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, again, I know that, and I love that. And
people love Mecha Banana Brain.
Definitely. Also, I guess now, question though was Muck Duck, was he an original or was he in something else?
He was an original, but he is sort of based. Like we wanted to do a Clayface type villain, but we wanted to make him compose him of garbage. We had a plan for him and some of the other villains to form, kind of a trash themed, a real trash group.
Right.
So eventually, we would have built to that. And James just draws such a great Clayface that you couldn't not do it. But there is a character named Muck Draper.
Oh wait! Is this James, or because he's doing all the stuff he's saying? Is that him?
No, that's Sabrina. That's Sabrina Alberghetti who drew the annual.
Sorry, you're right.
Hey, Sabrina, how you doing?
Sorry, you're right. I should have realized that. I am. Sorry, give me a moment. I hate when I screw up like that.
Oh no, it's absolutely it's absolutely.
You never know. Someone has a different title, name, and everything. Sometimes they do it to stay secret. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, no, Sabrina knocked it out, and she had to do that that so quickly. She still has those secret panels.
Nice. But yeah, I was gonna say was just some of the Joe's books. I definitely feel like the Joe's book. I could tell the superiority of you getting the freedom and everything, but I love moments like with Poker Face and everything. Like they did a comic about me, did they now? And then in number 3's villain thing, Poker Face. Yeah, it doesn't ring a bell. Just stuff like that, but
we got to do a joke too. That originally, I had a joke in Jesse Snyder's Muppet Snow White.
Where
we had to rewrite some things, and there's like a joke that I threw to him that got used in there that I reused in this, which is Bushroot upset that Darkwing. He's like, how can you not? Like when he doesn't remember.
I saw that.
Dr. Gary, and he's like, do you even? And Darkwing's like, in fairness, in my line of work, there's a lot of head injuries,
which happened to start the story too. But now, question with this, I take it was meant to be just more of a loony gag, right? Like don't take this seriously. Right?
Yeah, it's just a Looney Tunes, Darkwing splattered all over.
I know, because that felt like the most like compared to all the other slapstick, that felt the most like. Out of nowhere
James didn't want to repeat himself. We'd already done Darkwing getting smashed and turning into an accordion. We'd gotten him crumbling into dust.
Right.
A lot of those great Looney Tunes type gags that were so prevalent in Darkwing. Yep. So he was just trying to come up with a different way to have Darkwing get his hat handed to him.
Mm-hmm. Now, also, why does that redesign the outfit? I was curious on that as well, going from the turtleneck to the tie and everything.
There was a couple of reasons. Number one, whenever Tad would draw, when we'd be at a convention or anything like that, and Tad would be doodling Darkwing, he started drawing him with the tie. And Tad said that if he had the show to do over, he probably would have done the tie instead of the turtleneck, just to tie him a little bit more to the shadow and to the the noir heroes.
Which I always had that feeling, yeah.
Yeah, and also James and I did it as kind of a visual demarcation of this was the Boom series, and now we're moving into the new series. So things are going to be different. So it's kind of a visual representation of that. And then also there was going to be a couple of gags based on it about Darkwing's favorite turtleneck store, getting shut down.
What are those?
Yeah, and then there was also the tie was also going to be a weapon. So
nice.
Yeah, the tie was going to be a gadget. So there was going to be story reasons for it as well.
Right. Also, just the idea once you brought in just blanking on her name, Isis. Bringing her. Bringing her in, and you just what you did was and all that. I just love that. I'm paranoid, crazy myself here, but why do I always attract the weird ones? I love that, but I love the Frozen moment. I love that. It's like that was the most obvious thing you could do was reference Frozen.
Yeah, it was actually a little more heavy-handed initially. Like there is a point at the end where he flips Isis into the water, and originally he told her, he's like, Isis,
let it go.
Let it go.
I was expecting that.
Yeah, and it was like we got notes back that was like little too on the nose. Let's pull it back a bit.
Definitely. I just love that.
So instead, we got to do the terrible kind of like Mr. Freeze pun.
Yep. Yep. And also, just the fact of how incompetent the word it is. How you can just have naked duck while you say like this shall never happen again, and it's just like, it's just.
Yeah, he's like, I'm the eyes and ears. I'm a trained observer. There's nothing here that happens. And like Deck's in the background getting coffee.
I know, and just chilling next to Megaphone and all that. I just love that. And again, that was just so priceless.
I think the reveal of Negaduck's plan would have been huge for us.
Really?
I think that would have really kicked the series into a different gear because once we built to the Negaduck story and the reveal of what was actually going on and how he was back and what his plan was, I think it was going to blow people's minds. But then, like I said, they're going to go back and they're going to read the book and they're going to go like, oh my gosh, the clues are there. The clues are all laid out.
Yep. Now, can you tell me this? Is he working working with the Phantom Blood, or are they working separately? Because Yeah, because you mentioned about Negaduck with Spider Phoenix, which I'm like, wait.
No, he's not working with the Phantom Blood. I can confirm that.
All right. I gotta say, also, this was one of my favorite moments with Goslin. That just spoke so much.
There's two moments in the book that we really wanted to have.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately the second one was rushed because of us getting the news that we were getting cut off.
Mm-hmm.
But one was that moment, and the other one was the moment when Launchpad and Goslin, when Launchpad is feeling a little bit bad because Goslin's talking about, when she becomes Darkwing Duck, when she takes over.
Right.
And Launchpad, reveals that, well, he always kind of thought that he would take over. And they have that little bit of awkwardness between them. That awkwardness was meant to last a little bit longer.
Right.
Throughout the story, but yeah, we eventually.
I found it. Right here.
Yeah, so we wrapped it up in one page, but then they have a touching moment later as well that kind of like puts the period on that.
Why did it end so get cut off? Was it just sales or?
Well, Joe Books never promoted us. They never allowed us to do any promotion. We weren't allowed to do interviews. We weren't allowed to promote the book. They didn't want to do variant cover programs to kind of keep it fresh in the mind of retailers.
Oh, really?
I had like a whole variant cover program idea that would have kept it fresh in the mind of retailers for at least the first 12 issues.
Right.
And kept orders high. But they were a very small company. They didn't have the bandwidth. So they weren't allowed to do interviews because interviews had to be approved. So basically, you're going to do an interview, so the questions have to be submitted, and then they have to be approved by Disney. And then we have to answer the questions, and then those have to go back, and Disney has to approve those answers, and then the interview can be published.
Right.
Joe Books didn't want to deal with that back and forth. So it's like they're just like, well, no, you can't do interviews. And it was like, and we did a couple interviews. We did one for Doom Rocket that was up for like 2 days, and then it got pulled. Because Joe Books was like, you can't do interviews. It was like, you're tying our hands here. The only promotion that's being done for the book is James and I. We're not getting any kind of marketing. We're not getting any kind of like buzz outside of how much the fans appreciate it and how much the fans are doing it. We weren't sending review copies out to anybody. We weren't allowed to do that. So it was just kind of our hands are tied from a marketing perspective. So it just kind of fell off the radar really quickly.
Right. Oh, I gotta say also, I didn't know it was your tweet after Ed Asner passed away that one character you always saw voicing him was Maury Twackenstein, I think.
Maury Twackenstein. Yeah.
Yeah, that was so touching. Now, last question, because I gotta start wrapping up soon because I got some other stuff going on. So I want to ask, you were editing the Muppet Show comic, correct?
Yes, with Roger the Roger Langridge, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I got the omnibus and everything, and
I did too. It's like the only Marvel book my name's ever been in.
Yeah, and I love though the stuff with Skeeter, and everything, and how for a while you kept saying Scooter's sister. Did it play out where it took into that last issue before you can finally say Skeeter, or was that a creative choice?
Well, when we first pitched it, Disney was sure that they had the visual rights to Skeeter, but they didn't know if they had the rights to the name. So we were working under, you can only call her Scooter's sister. And we were hoping that it would all be resolved and we'd be able to reveal it by the end. And then like after the first issue went to print, they came back and they said, legal said we own it. You can use the name Skeeter now. But at that point, Roger had already decided that it was going to be a running gag of them saying, not saying her name, just
until the very end,
fans, so that the fans were going, "Is this Skeeter or not? It's obviously Skeeter. Why won't you say Skeeter's name?" And then at the end, we said it. So that was at that point, it was a decision by Roger to play out the gag.
I love bringing Skeeter in because I was always like, "Where is she during this point?" Because I know she was introduced after the show, but it was always one of those things where you're like, but where is she during the Muppet Show? And now we know and everything. It's a lot better than Robot Chicken's version.
I'm not familiar with that, but yeah.
Basically, they killed it, and she's dead. And then Scooter developed a split personality. It was a slasher movie style story.
Oh my gosh!
Those Robot Chicken. What do you expect, right?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. But yeah, it was a fun reveal for the fans. They absolutely loved it. There's so many Muppet Baby fans.
I love that whole Muppet Show comic. I mean, especially language styles. Like what I like best is that when you had it was who did the one for the Skeeter issues? That was
Amy Meverson.
Yeah, hers was like on model with it, which worked. Although if I could be perfectly honest, sometimes it did have that uncanny valley because it felt like too much on model, if you know what I mean. Where it felt like some of the looks felt too like what you would see in the show. but
Yeah,
doing stuff that a puppet couldn't do, stuff like that. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Great artwork. I do love the artwork. I'm just saying you had that weird feeling, but it's like it was on model, but there's that one action. But you have Roger Language, who is not on model, but the energy is, he has the energy of the Muppets. It's kind of that whole one does one, but not it lacks the other. One does the other, lacks the other kind of a thing. Like.
No, I understand what you're saying. The interesting thing is that at the time, Disney was very slavishly on model with things. Like you had to, the Mickey shorts hadn't debuted yet. They hadn't experimented really with other art styles. Right. It was pretty much, you had to stick to the house style. So Roger was really like kind of a departure from that. And to the Muppet team's credit, they saw the value that he brought. And, and so that they allowed it to be off model with him doing it. And people just absolutely loved it. I'd love to get another reprint of that going. I'd love to get the Darkwing material reprinted. I'd love to see the old slave labor graphics Gargoyles material reprinted.
Good God, yes.
There's a huge fan base for all of this. And I would love to. I'd love to be involved with bringing it to people, but
I would too.
Unfortunately, it's a tough thing to get a hold of the publishing rights for these properties.
Right, but it's probably now, unlike say Marvel, I'm pretty sure Disney would probably be more open to if you're able to get through to them. Probably, I assume, right? I
have
Disney
some
publishing
with Disney, and there's been over the years there's been some back and forth. So, fingers crossed. What would help is, anytime anybody wants to make some noise on social media and say, hey, why don't you have these guys do this? Because I'll tell you right now, the one thing I've never gotten to do that I know that I would be the person to do it right. And that's not cockiness. That's not hyperbole. I know what I'm capable of. Is that the Disney comics have not been given the chance to shine in the modern comic book world. The market's changing. I think that I've got a lot of ideas on how to take advantage of the way that the market's changing and put together a really good program. And I think that, you would have comics by people who actually really love these properties, who, much like the DuckTales team on the reboot, Frank loves those properties, and that love shone through. Things were changed and things were different and things were, kind of updated, but it's still very much got the heart of DuckTales. And so I think that, as far as comics go, I could really do something spectacular with those characters.
I agree. I think you would too. I really do think you would.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep. Aaron, thank you for coming on. Wish this could go longer, but I'll just be honest. I got a dentist appointment coming up soon. So wish I didn't. Wish I could reschedule that, but what are you going to do, right?
No, I understand. Yeah, no, go get your teeth taken care of. It's important. Yep. Everybody, even if you're afraid, go to the dentist. It's very important.
Oh, boy. Why can't I imagine a Darkwing villain or somebody that's a dentist that makes Launchpad terrified to go, and then you could tack on the message saying, even though just you had one bad example was a bad dentist, doesn't mean that all dentists are bad.
You want to know something funny?
What?
We had a dentist villain coming up in the Joe Book series. There was it was basically like I called him the 10th. Like in the initial idea for him, I told James, I said, "What if he's the 10th dentist?" And James goes, "What do you mean?" And I go,
like
"You know how you always see those things that says 9 out of 10 dentists agree floss after every meal?" And I said, so like on the poster, it's just like 9 guys going floss after every meal, and then he's like off to the side, like you couldn't do a cigarette, but like the idea is like he's got a cigarette, and he's like, I'm sure you got better things to do, and we were gonna do a
that would have been great. So. But I'm just imagining that would be a great message though, like guys on their launch pads, like now terrified to go to the dentist, and in Dark we could do this big moment how you played up like a after school special, like just because one dentist is bad doesn't mean that they're all bad, and it ends on a gag or something where who knows, maybe Darkwing's like, when's the last time you've been to a dentist? I gotta get going.
And you get to draw Darkwing comically, with the big bandage around his head like the old cartoons, there's some good gags there.
Yep, all right. But so thank you all for coming in, and once again, thank you so much, Aaron, and we'll catch you all later.
Yeah, thank you, Robert. Appreciate it.
Yep.
All right, have a good day, man.